Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another exciting session of Super Sunday. Today, I am sitting in a completely different environment altogether. I've always been doing the FB Live from home, but today I am in office, and there's quite a bit of a background noise out here. So just in case if the noise is too much, do let me know, and then I will not take this any further. But maybe we can take this topic some other time, or maybe next week. So if you are distracted with the background noise, do let me know. So good afternoon once again, and let's get started with this session of Super Sunday. Today our topic is brand communication. As you all know, Super Sunday is all about giving insights, information, a little bit of learning, experience, and expertise on marketing and business to entrepreneurs who are just started. That means new owners, single owners, small teams, startups. That's what this session is meant to give insights about for this kind of target audience. So let's get started. Thank you, Kishore, for telling me there's no background noise, but yeah, I find it a little distracting. So if I do digress from the topic, make sure I'm back on track. So about brand communication. Brand. Now we as a layperson always interchange brand and product or a service. Brand is completely a different parameter. Product or service is completely another different parameter. They are not interchangeable. Why I say that? Because when we talk about brands, we talk about a collective emotions, attributes, functionalities that we perceive about a product or a service. On the other hand, a product or a service is something that is tangibly transacted in a business. For example, if I have to say about 4C, 4C is a service-oriented business. So our services are the products that we sell. Those are the activities that we do. They cannot be termed as a brand. Okay, what we can ideally say is there are n number of products or n number of services under a single brand. But you cannot have a product and then you can put brands under it. Then that would be a completely different concept altogether. So this is basic difference between a product and a brand. When we talk about products are exactly what we as business owners sell. But when you talk about brands are the perceptions. Brands is the imagination, is the visualization of what you actually do or serve the community. Hi Priya, welcome. Nice to have you on this session. And we today are talking about branding. We're talking about brand communication. Okay, I'm just going to take a part of it because half an hour is not exactly what we can finish off and say conclude about talking about brands. Brands is quite vast thing, but today we are just maybe touching on the basics of what brand communication is. So as I said, brands and products are two different items, two different aspects. Now, what exactly is a brand? Brand, people say, okay, let me have the responses from you. What do you think is a brand? Is it a name or a title given? Is it just a logo? Is it just a tagline? What exactly is a brand? I want to know from my audience, what exactly does the word brand mean to you? Perceptions about the company. Yes, Priya. Brands are basically perceptions. Brands are basically your emotional or functional attributes that you can put into an entity which is running a business or a commercial business. Brand in itself, when I say it is a lot of attributes which are emotional. Now emotions can only be felt. I cannot actually put a visualization to an emotion until unless maybe I can use emojis, right? So how do I start off with branding my company, branding my business? A lot of new businesses think branding is not important. First, let me make money, and then I will go and try to make a brand out of it. Well, that's not the right way to go about. When a child is born, you give it a name, right? And as it grows, you attach attributes to it. There is a fair child, there's a dark-skinned child, there is a naughty child, there is a cute child, isn't it? But to start off with, we have to give that child a name. So brand actually starts when you start naming your business. So if you put in a bit of efforts to find the right kind of name, to find the right kind of title to your company, to your business, things become much more easier. Because then, you have to differentiate it between a lot of other entities. And unless you have a proper, perfect name, not possible, right? If I have to name myself Anupama, yeah, the way I interact with people has given me attributes, maybe trustworthy, maybe frivolous, maybe good for nothing, or maybe expert, honest, well groomed, sloppy. Yeah? Now if you understand this, it starts with a name, and likewise it's for business as well. So when you're talking about a brand as an accumulation of emotional and functional attributes, yeah, it needs to have a name to pin those attributes to. So when we start branding, your branding actually starts when you start your business. Your branding actually starts when you go for the trade license, saying that I want to name my company ABC. That's exactly where your branding exercise has actually started. Another thing that the brand has is all the abstract attributes, like just the way I said, sloppy, well-groomed, honest, trustworthy. Yeah? Now these things cannot be actually put into words. When I say words, I would say a bit of a visualization for us to read. Yeah, those have to be felt, and those come as you go along. So when you start positioning your entity, when you start placing your entity in the marketplace, that's when you start adding those adjectives. Right? We did something called positioning way back a few episodes earlier, when we're talking about how to position ourselves in the market. Now that time actually the branding activity is already started. Yeah, because you're creating a position, a place in the mind of your consumer. So those are the words, those are the terminology you are going to get into your naming, into your brand, so that your brand is positioned correctly. So your branding activity has already started when you start positioning your business. The third aspect is, of course, the visualization of it. If I have a company name, 4C, I can write it in n number of ways. I can use n number of attributes to describe it. But if I cannot put it to show it, to flaunt it to my customers, how are they going to associate the name to that particular entity? For example, if I say Anupama, Anupama can be anybody, right? Whoever has the name Anupama is Anupama for you. But the moment I put a photograph of Anupama and say, this is Anupama, what happens? There's a connection. There is an association of the name, the attributes, and the face, the actual face. So you actually are now talking about the third attribute of the brand, and that is the symbolization. And that's where we start talking about creating logos. Of course, another very important aspect of the brand is the tone. Now, when we're talking about tone, yeah, all the brands have a brand name. They have a tagline, a terminology that goes associated with it. There is another aspect, and that's the logo, the visualization. But there's so many brands out there, and specifically on social media, yeah, where your another very important sensory organ, the ears, are open. And in such situations, if you have a perfect tone in how you speak about your brand, how you talk about your brand, what kind of audio is associated with your brand, makes a huge difference. That's another association that brands usually come up with. For example, I can give you is the Nokia tune. Wherever anybody who has heard the Nokia tune, they would actually do not have to spell it out that, okay, this is Nokia. They already know what is Nokia. They have already identified in their minds what their logo is. They've identified in their mind what they perceive Nokia to be. Same thing goes with do. Remember the do. Right? That if you listen to it, itself tells you a lot about the brand. So these are more basic aspects that we associate with a brand. Now, in the first place, people ask me, why do we waste so much of time thinking about brand when I should be thinking about my business, about creating revenue? My friends, when we started talking about business, we very well said, and I reiterate it again and again, business is for customers. We transact business. Entities transact business for people, for consumers. For the consumers to know you, to get associated with you, you need to make them aware that you exist. So you have a name. That's a part of your brand. You have a specific attributes that are associated with your brand. People transact business with people who they trust. So does your brand have trust in it? Is your brand honest, transparent for people to trust you? So this another aspect comes into play. Your logo. If today I showed you an Etisalat logo without the Etisalat in text format, wouldn't you know it? You would immediately recognize the logo. If it was the HSBC logo without the HSBC text written below it, wouldn't you recognize? Or as a matter of fact, any luxury vehicle, if I showed you a Mercedes logo, wouldn't you recognize it as Mercedes and what it stands for? When we have these already connections being built in the mind of the consumer, don't you think brands become an important aspect? And we as business owners need to put enough time, enough efforts to create those associations. That means building up those brands. It's really important, right? If I say that I am a marketing communications agency, There are n number of marketing communications agencies in Dubai. How do my consumer, my audience, my clientele find me and associate that this is the person that I need to work with because I trust them? I need to give them a fair share of attributes to point out that this is the person they mean to do business with. When it comes to consumers' point of view, what do they think about brands? First and foremost, they think you are the perfect source for a particular product or service that they are being offered. Second thing, they associate quite a few things like the symbol, the tone, the colors, the text to you. That means they are your title deed kind of a thing. That's what I am responsible for. This is mine. This is me. When it comes to the business owner's side, for a business owner, a brand is all about identity. And that identity can come in different aspects and different roles altogether. And that in its entirety comprises of brand communication. We're talking about brand identity. That means I'm talking about the image I'm creating in the mind of people. I'm talking about the way I talk. I'm talking about what kind of attributes are associated with my product or service. And how I make sure that it reaches my clientele. So all of these things put together, we start talking about brand communication. But when we start off brand communication, the first thing that I need to have is a brand. And to have a brand, I need to have a perfect name, I need to have a perfect terminology, I need to have a perfect symbol, and I need to have a perfect tone of voice, tone of communication that goes with it. Another very, very important aspect of branding or creating a brand is to protect a legal right of the company or of the product or service. If you have a brand in place, that means you can associate it with your product, and those activities, those products can be legally under your brand, and tomorrow nobody can play around with it. For example, if you create a trademark, a brand gives you that opportunity to legalize your brand name, your brand attributes, and hence it can be trademarked. And a trademarked brand can work wonders if you are planning to go long term on a large scale. Because the moment you get successful, there are many businesses that imitate you, copy you, and try to use your branding attributes to leverage to their brands. So this is another very legal reason why branding needs to be done right from the beginning. Now, branding is something that's not a hard and fast rule. When a brand name or a brand attribute becomes irrelevant, you can always change it. You can always revamp it. Right? What you are today, you might not be the same in another 5 years. Things are going to change. Things are going to scale up. You are going to grow. And so will your brand. Even big brands like Etisalat, they have gone through a branding revamp. I still remember about 20 years back when I came into this country, the Etisalat logo was a bluish green patch with swirls and a red dot. Where is that logo today? Today, the logo of Etisalat is completely different. It's a blurb. The blurb is green. And if I show you that blurb, is good enough for us to recognize that it is Etisalat logo. When we talk about Etisalat, we talk about monopoly, we talk about the kind of services they provide, the the fantastic customer service that they have, a lot of things, right? Yeah. So they also started with the branding exercise. Maybe you do not have huge amount of investment to put into creating a brand. No problem. But at least make sure you start off on a right footing. And when I say right footing, what do I exactly mean? As I said, it starts with a name, right? I have seen many people, they just come up with a name out of the blue. And that's not way how we approach branding. When I start with a name, I make sure it is unique, of course, but it is distinctive as well. That means nobody in the market has this kind of a name. Second thing, I can make it relevant. That means if I say 4C is just not enough, but 4C integrated communicators makes it more relevant to what exactly I'm doing. Another aspect is to make it extendable. For example, if it is its products, yeah, I can put this brand name on 10 different product lines. For example, I can give you Samsung. You have Samsung Galaxy, you have Samsung Note, you have Samsung S7, you have Samsung S10, right? The Samsung thing continues with each of their product. So I can actually associate my brand name to all these product lines. Brand name should ideally give an idea about your entity, your product, or your service. Make it a little bit more easily pronounced, easily spelled. It should be convertible. For example, in this part of the world, it should be ideally convertible into English and Arabic. Because many a times I've seen we have the English name and the conversion of it to Arabic completely changes a lot of things. It should give a fair idea of the business you do, maybe the category of business you do. Yeah, for example, I have advocates. Yeah, advocates usually they have their owner name put up, so it is ABC Advocates and Legal Consultants. That becomes your brand name, with of course your terminology as well included in your name. Now what it requires is a logo, and if it is ABC, I can play around with ABC, I can play around with its colors, I can play around with the text that I use. There is no limit to my imagination if I'm designing a logo, which will point out to this particular entity. Your brand name also can give specific attributes. For example, like I would say quick fix, or what would I say? Any other name that I can give in this category is College Times. Yeah, those are good names where they actually give you an idea of what they actually can be or could be to start off with. Gulf News, right? So this kind of names can be selected for your business, and that's the first step of branding. Once you have a perfect name, then of course the terminology will follow. It will position, the terminology actually reiterates and reaffirms your positioning in the market. Your logo becomes a point of association for your audience. And the way you speak, the tones that you use, the audio that you use to go with it will strengthen your brand communication. Branding, my friends, is a vast topic. Branding is an art and science of understanding how people perceive an entity, how people perceive a business to transact with. And it should not be taken any lightly. So when you are starting a business, or if you already have a business in place and you have not worked on your brand, start thinking about it. Start thinking about brand as something that you need to work on, maybe parallelly at the moment if you have an existing business. People should be able to associate your business, your product, your service with a particular brand name, with a particular visual identity. And all this encompassing forms the business or the brand identity. And when we start making it clear, communicating about it to our audience, that's the scope of work when it comes to brand communication. We will take a lot of it in depth in our coming episodes of branding and brand communication. So just to summarize what we spoke today, we spoke about what brand is. It is an accumulation of emotional and functional attributes. What's important when we start off branding is to have a perfect name, a relevant name, to use the right terminology to attribute those specific abstract emotions to our brand, to have a visual identity, and that visual identity can be anything as long as it goes with your brand name and what you do. And of course, the aspect of communication and audio format that we talk about, how we feel about when we're talking about our brand. With this, I sign off. Please make sure that you log on at 6:30 to listen to Priya today, for she is going to have a wonderful topic, and the topic is do hashtags work? So to get a little more insights onto hashtags, log on at 6:30 to listen to What's Up with Priya. And with this, I sign off. Let's meet next week, 2 p.m. on another exciting Super Sunday. Till then, have a fantastic week ahead. Bye.